In the year 1100, a clerk in an English abbey opened a ledger and began writing down who owed what to whom. He did not know it, but he was inventing the surname. Before that, almost nobody in Europe had a fixed family name. You were John the Smith, or John from the Hill, or John, son of Robert, and when John died, the name died with him. Then the Normans brought a system of land tenure that required records, and records require that a name stay the same across generations. Within 300 years, nearly every family in England, Scotland, and much of Europe had a permanent surname. Here is the part that matters to you. In that same window, a small number of families were granted arms, titles, and land by kings, and their surnames were locked into the record with unusual precision, because a title has to be inheritable to be worth anything. Those names survived when ordinary names blurred. Everybody with European ancestry is descended from royalty, because 1,000 years of marriage compounds until almost every line reaches a throne. The mathematics behind it is real. Go back 40 generations and you have more theoretical ancestors than there were people alive. But that is a statistical trick, and it is not what this video is about. This is about the 20 surnames where the connection is documented rather than statistical. Names that appear in charters, in the rolls of arms, in wills and grants and attainders, attached to families that held power. Stay with me, because one name on this list belongs to a family that lost a crown, and one belongs to a man who was executed for treason while his descendants ended up on the currency. If one of these names is in your family, tell me in the comments where your line comes from. And subscribe before we start, because the names people leave decide what I make next. The most literal name on this list, because it names a job rather than a place or a father. Walter FitzAlan came to Scotland from Brittany in the middle of the 1100s and was made High Steward by King David I. The steward ran the royal household, its lands and its money. The office was made hereditary and the family took it as their name. In 1371, the 7th steward's descendant became King Robert II, and the family that had managed the household ended up owning it. Stuarts ruled Scotland for over 3 centuries, and England as well after 1603. The line ends the way these lines usually end. Charles I was executed in 1649. His grandson's cause died at Culloden in 1746. The last direct claimant died in Rome in 1807. Stewart and Stewart together are one of the most common surnames of Scottish origin in America. They are descendants of the enormous network of tenants, cadets and dependents that a royal house accumulates over 300 years. Number 2, the name Percy. If you want to see what a great noble family actually looked like, look at the Percys. Not the crown, but the power immediately below it. They came with the conquest, took the north of England and held it as Earls of Northumberland with something close to independence. Their private army fought the Scots for 4 centuries. Harry Hotspur, the most famous Percy, died in rebellion against Henry IV at Shrewsbury in 1403. Another Percy was executed after the rising of the North in 1572. Another was implicated in the Gunpowder Plot in 1605 and died in the Tower. 4 Percys died violently in political conflict across 2 centuries. That is not a run of bad luck. That is what happens to a family strong enough to be a threat. The Nevilles were the Percys' rivals in the north, and for 1 generation they were the most powerful family in England. Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, is remembered as the Kingmaker. In the Wars of the Roses, he put Edward IV on the throne, quarrelled with him, and then put Henry VI back on it. A private nobleman decided who wore the crown of England twice. He was killed at Barnet in 1471, and his family's power collapsed within a single generation. His daughters married into royalty, which is why Neville blood runs into the Tudor and Stewart lines, and outward from there into an enormous number of ordinary families. Number 4. The name Howard. The Howards are the survivors. Where other great families were destroyed, they bent and continued, and they are still Dukes of Norfolk today. The cost of surviving is visible in the record. Anne Boleyn was a Howard on her mother's side, and Catherine Howard was a Howard outright. Both of them were beheaded. The Duke of Norfolk, who arranged both marriages, was himself condemned to death in 1547 and survived only because the king died the night before the execution. Elizabeth I, Queen of England, was the granddaughter of a Howard. The name is common in America and in England, and most Howards are not descended from the ducal line. But the family archive at Arundel is one of the richest private record collections in Europe, and lines that connect to it are unusually well documented. Number 5. The name Plantagenet. This is the name that vanished, which is exactly why it belongs on the list. The Plantagenets ruled England from Henry II in 1154 to Richard III in 1485. 331 years, 8 generations, the Crusades. After Bosworth, the Tudors set about eliminating the remaining Plantagenet claimants. Margaret Pole, Countess of Salisbury, the last of the direct line, was executed in 1541 at the age of 67 by an inexperienced headsman. The execution took several blows. The surname effectively ceased to exist as a living family name, but the blood did not vanish. Illegitimate branches, daughters and cadet lines carried it into families named Somerset, Neville, Pole, and dozens of others. If you have documented English gentry ancestry, a Plantagenet line is statistically likely, and it will run through one of those names rather than through the name itself. Number 6. The name Fitzgerald. Fitz is Norman French for son of, and it marks a whole category of names, some of which were deliberately created for royal bastards. The Fitzgeralds went to Ireland with the invasion of 1169 and became the Geralds. Their Desmond branch ruled a territory the size of a small kingdom, spoke Irish, kept Irish poets, and rebelled twice against the Tudors. The last Earl of Desmond was hunted down and killed in 1583. The Kildare branch survived, and their descendants are dukes today, and an American president carried the name in the middle of his own, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Number 7. The name Bruce. The clearest documented royal line in Scotland and one of the most misunderstood surnames in America. The family came from Brix in Normandy. Robert de Bruce received Annandale from David I. 6 generations later, another Robert Bruce killed his rival in a church, seized the crown in 1306, and won Scottish independence at Bannockburn in 1314. Here is the misunderstanding. Bruce is a common American surname. Scottish surnames were taken by tenants and followers, so a Bruce ancestor in Annandale is more likely a man who farmed the family's land than a man who shared its blood. Both are real history, only one is what people hope for. Number 8. The name Douglas. The family the Scottish kings feared most. The Black Douglases grew so powerful in the 1400s that James II personally stabbed the 8th Earl to death at Stirling Castle in 1452, after inviting him there under safe conduct. That is how a king treats a subject who has become a rival. The Red Douglas branch inherited the power, and a Douglas married the widow of James IV, making the family step-grandfathers to Mary, Queen of Scots. Douglas blood therefore runs directly into the Stewart line, and from there into the British royal family. Number 9. The name Dacre. This is a smaller name, and it is on the list precisely because the Dacres held the western march of the Anglo-Scottish border, guarding it for the crown in exchange for lands and authority. Thomas Dacre commanded the reserve at Flodden in 1513, the battle where a Scottish king and most of his nobility died in an afternoon. The male line failed in 1569, and the estates went through heiresses into the Howard family. That is the ordinary fate of a noble name, not execution, just biology. With no sons, the name leaves the record, while the land itself continues under another family. Number 10. The name Talbot. The Talbots produced the English commander the French called the Terror of the English, and the family is still there. John Talbot, 1st Earl of Shrewsbury, fought in the 100 Years' War for over 40 years, was captured, ransomed, and finally killed at Castillon in 1453, the battle that ended English rule in France. The earldom is one of the oldest in England, and it still exists. Talbot, as an American surname, is far more common than the noble line, and it also arises independently in Ireland. Number 11. The name Grey. This is the name that touched the crown for exactly 9 days. Lady Jane Grey was proclaimed Queen of England in 1553, held the title for 9 days, and was executed at 16. Her father was executed weeks later. The Greys were not obscure. They were one of the great families of the Midlands, connected to the Woodvilles and through them to the crown. The Jane Grey episode was not a bizarre accident. It was a noble family reaching for the throne the way noble families did, and losing. Grey and Grey are common surnames throughout the English-speaking world, and most carriers have no connection to this family. The name also arose independently as a simple descriptive nickname. Jane Seymour was Henry VIII's third wife, the one who gave him a son and died of childbed fever 12 days later. That death made her family. Her brother Edward became Lord Protector of England, ruling in the name of his nephew, Edward VI, until he was overthrown and executed in 1552. Her other brother was executed in 1549. 2 brothers of a queen beheaded within 3 years of each other, and the family still recovered. The Dukes of Somerset descend from them and hold the title today. Number 13. The name Boleyn. This is the name that changed the religion of an entire country. The Boleyns were not ancient nobility. They were London merchants who rose through trade, marriage, and service in 3 generations, which is exactly why the old families despised them. Anne Boleyn's refusal to be a mistress led Henry VIII to break. She was executed in 1536 on charges of adultery, incest, and treason that historians overwhelmingly regard as fabricated. Her brother was executed with her. Their daughter became Elizabeth I. The surname is rare today, and most modern Boleyns are not related. The line survived through the female side into Careys and Knowles, and outward from there. Number 14. The name Tudor. A Welsh family that ended up on the throne of England through a secret marriage nobody in power approved of. Owen Tudor was a servant in the household of Catherine of Valois, the widowed queen of Henry V. They married secretly around 1430. Their grandson Henry won at Bosworth in 1485 and became Henry VII. The dynasty lasted 3 generations and ended with Elizabeth, who had no children. In Wales, the surname continues normally because Tudor was a common Welsh personal name long before it was a royal house. A Norman family from Sinclair in Normandy that ended up holding an earldom in a place the Scottish crown barely controlled. The Sinclairs became Earls of Orkney under the King of Norway, while also holding land under the King of Scots, which made them a rare thing. A family with 2 overlords and considerable freedom. They built Rosslyn Chapel in the 1400s, and its carvings have attracted a century of speculation about the Templars, none of it supported by evidence. What is documented is enough. A Norman family that acquired a Norse earldom and held the north for 200 years. Number 16. The name Hamilton. The family that stood closest to the Scottish throne without ever sitting on it. Walter Fitzgilbert de Hamilton handed Bothwell Castle to Robert the Bruce after Bannockburn, and his descendants married into the royal line. For long stretches of the 1500s, the head of the Hamilton family, James Hamilton, Earl of Arran, was regent during the childhood of Mary, Queen of Scots. Being that close to a throne is dangerous, and Hamiltons were executed, exiled, and imprisoned across 2 centuries for it. And the American thread? Alexander Hamilton was the son of a younger son of an Ayrshire branch. Number 17. The name Villiers. The fastest rise in English history and proof that this system was never purely about blood. George Villiers was a minor gentleman's son with no fortune and remarkable looks. He was introduced to James I in 1614, and within a decade he was Duke of Buckingham, the most powerful man in the kingdom and the closest companion of 2 successive kings. He was assassinated in 1628 by a soldier with a grievance. His descendants married into the ducal families and remain there. Diana, Princess of Wales, descended from the Villiers line, which is one route. Number 18. The name Spencer. The Spencers made their money in sheep, and that is not a joke. It is the entire foundation of the family. In the 1500s, they were graziers in Northamptonshire who bought land steadily, married upward relentlessly, and were knighted, then ennobled. By the 1800s, they were earls with one of the great houses of England. Diana Spencer married the heir to the throne in 1981, and her son will be king, which means the current line of succession runs through a family that started with wool. Spencer is a common English surname, meaning dispenser of provisions in a household, so most Spencers descend from stewards rather than earls. Number 19. The name Churchill. John Churchill was a page in the household of the Duke of York, rose through the army, and became the first Duke of Marlborough. The dukedom came with Blenheim Palace, and 2 centuries later, Winston Churchill was born in it, a younger branch of the family with no title and no fortune, who became the most consequential British politician of the 20th century. The name is more common in America than most people assume, and the great majority of American Churchills descend from Devon and Dorset yeoman families rather than from the dukes. Number 20. The name Windsor. The most recent surname on this list and the most artificial. The British royal family had no surname worth the word for most of its history. Kings simply do not need one. By 1917, the reigning house was called Saxe, Coburg and Gotha, which was a serious problem while Britain was at war with Germany and German aircraft named Gotha were bombing London. So on the 17th of July 1917, George V issued a proclamation and simply the House of Saxe, Coburg and Gotha ceased to exist, and the House of Windsor began. Windsor, as an ordinary English surname, existed long before that, taken from the town. So if your name is Windsor, your line almost certainly runs to a place, not a palace. And that is the honest close to all 20. The reason these names are documented is not that their blood was different, it is that titles must be inherited. Inheritance requires proof, and proof requires paperwork. Ordinary families were doing exactly the same thing in the same centuries, but nobody was writing it down, and that is the only real difference between a name on this list and yours. Carrying one of these surnames does not make you a descendant of the family that made it famous. Names were taken by tenants, granted to servants, adopted at will, translated by clerks, and in America, assigned to enslaved people. It is the parish register, the will, the land record, and the test. Put your surname in the comments and say which country your oldest known ancestor came from. The names that come up most often decide what I cover next. If this was worth your time, a like helps it reach other people carrying these names, and subscribing means you will see the next one.